Hello everyone, welcome back to Oculus Occulta. Today I'm going to be talking about discernment in dating, and the reason I'm talking about this today is because as a tarot reader, I see a lot of relationships that are fundamentally incompatible, where one person is either giving too much and the other is giving too little, or there are just irreconcilable differences between the two people. One person may be more mature emotionally and the other is not. One person is more ready for a long-term stable relationship and the other one is not. One person just outright cheats and the other does not, or they're both cheating. I see a lot of different combinations and variations of relationships that are fundamentally flawed, which in and of itself is not a big deal, except for the fact that a lot of times I get people who come back over and over asking the same question about the same person over and over. Generally speaking, for tarot readers, we're of the opinion that if you need a tarot reading to understand your relationship, that's not a fantastic relationship. Now, that's a stereotype. That doesn't have to always be true. Spirituality is for everyone. Tarot is for everyone. You could be in a very happy relationship, marriage, whatever, and do tarot just to check up. But if you find yourself checking tarot because the other person is not clear to you about their feelings, this is a little bit of an issue. The reason I want to talk about discernment in dating is because I have been someone who lacked discernment, and I know the consequences of that. You end up with someone who's just incompatible with you. And the reason that you might not have discernment is, again, because you want to be accepting of the person who is in front of you, give them the benefit of the doubt, give them a chance, not feel like you're a stuck-up person, or not feel like you're a judgmental person. Now, when you have discernment, you are able to make judgments about the person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are judging them in such a way as to put them down. You're judging them based on how compatible they are going to be for you. So you are judging them and you are holding them to a standard, which they might not like and they might think is unfair, but it's necessary. Because if you don't do this, if you don't have discernment when you're dating, you're going to end up with somebody who's all over the place and probably not compatible with you. And again, I say this from experience. I had made the mistake of allowing people to be who they are without any judgment because I was scared to judge them, without thinking that I need to judge whether this person is right for me or not. I didn't want to do that, because it was a judgment and I was scared to do that. I don't want to judge people. I want them to be who they are and I want to be compatible with everyone. And I end up in situations and in relationships that are not good for me with people who don't treat me well, who don't respect me, who don't reciprocate my feelings. They don't reciprocate the effort that I put into the relationship. And in the end, the relationship breaks down. Either I leave them, they leave me, they cheat, they jump into another relationship immediately, all kinds of things happen, okay? And then I have to recover from that and then start all over again. And so a couple of cycles of this, in addition to being a tarot reader and seeing many cycles of this happening with other people, I've learned that you actually have to be brutal in your judgment and in your discernment at the very beginning when you meet somebody. So what does that take? What does that entail? And what do you need to do to be able to do this? First and foremost, you need to know yourself. You need to know yourself as a person. What is my communication style? What is my love language? What kind of trauma am I bringing into the relationship? What kind of baggage from previous relationships am I bringing in to another person? And then you start to analyze what is acceptable to you about yourself and what is not acceptable, what should change. So for example, let's say you don't like your communication style when you're angry. So for me personally, I'll give you an example of myself. When I'm upset with somebody, I shut down and I get quiet. I do the silent treatment because that is how my mother used to treat me when she was mad at me as I was growing up. So unfortunately, this is the only way that I know how to express myself when I'm very angry, is to shut down. Now, this is not something I enjoy doing. It's not something I like about myself. It's something that I have to work on. Now, up until recently, I did not work on it. I just said to myself, like, well, this is how I am because this is how I grew up. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not a victim of your trauma. You can change if you want to. And so I told myself, I don't like this about myself, so I want to change it. Because if I get into the next relationship, I do not want to shut down and be quiet, because it was not good in my last relationship. I didn't enjoy the feeling. And he reciprocated in the same way. He also shut down and got quiet, and it wasn't productive. So in the next relationship, I anticipate communicating very clearly to the other person. I tend to shut down. I'm working on it. If you see me do it, the way to get me out of it is to initiate conversation and remind me that what I'm doing is inappropriate and unnecessary and not something I want to continue. So if I have a good partner, he's going to see, okay, she's angry. Let me give her a moment. And then let me come remind her, like, okay, you're shutting down again. And I know we're both upset, but we do need to talk about this. I'm going to give you some time, but you have to snap out of it. That is something that I would appreciate if my partner does. But it's also up to me to let him know that that's how I want us to communicate when I'm upset. And I need to know how he's going to be when he's upset, right? So this is the communication that they're talking about. But I need to know that about myself, right? So you need to have a good understanding of who you are and decide, is this just who I am? Am I accepting this? Or is it something I want to change? And in the process of changing that, you communicate that to your partner. A lot of people, they don't do this. They just get into a relationship, and when they're mad, they're mad. And then they find out through experience, my partner tends to shut down, or my partner is very explosive, or my partner doesn't like to go to sleep angry, or my partner doesn't want to talk to me for 3 days. They just learn as they go along and then either accept it or don't accept it. So part of the communication aspect is being able to express yourself and tell the person, this is what you can anticipate from me. What can I anticipate from you? What type of communication style do you have when you're upset, for example? Now, this is a difficult conversation to have for most people. When do you have this? Do you have this on the first date, the second date, the third date? I don't know. That depends on you and the other person and how comfortable you are speaking to them. They could be a very mature person and have this conversation by the third date and say, I think it is important to talk about communication style when we're angry. Let's talk about it. But generally speaking, people don't outright advertise the type of person that they are. You have to experience them. So when we talk about discernment, coming back to the idea of discernment, when you're dating somebody, you are looking for red flags. This is the time that you look for the red flags. But when and how do you know that the flag is red? Once again, this comes into the idea of knowing yourself. You need to know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable for you. So this is where you have to ask yourself, what are things that are not negotiable for me in terms of a partner saying or doing certain things or participating in certain things that I will not tolerate. I cannot be with this person, no matter how much I like them and no matter how attractive they are. I cannot be with them because they have a non-negotiable. This is discernment. You have to cut it off there. Okay, no, well, let's give them a chance and maybe, because you've already determined one of the strongest no's for you is already there. So one good example of a non-negotiable that men tend to have is they don't like women with a history of sex work. Okay, now whether that's good or bad, that's not here for debate from me. I'm saying this is a typical non-negotiable that men tend to have. Okay, so if you're a man who happens to watch this and you're saying that I don't want a girl with an OnlyFans, you meet this wonderful, beautiful lady, everything's perfect about her, but she has an OnlyFans. Discernment requires you to stand by your non-negotiable and not date this woman. Because today, when you make the decision like, okay, it's a non-negotiable, but let me try, it's gonna come up and it's gonna become a problem. It's gonna become a problem for you and for her, and she's gonna say, well, you knew about this from the beginning, why did you date me if this was such a big problem for you? You're not going to forget a non-negotiable halfway through the relationship and just say, well, whatever. It's going to bother you, and it's going to nitpick at you throughout the relationship. Now, does that necessarily mean you shouldn't give this person a chance? That's up to you, okay? I would suggest that you stick to your non-negotiable, all right? You have to go to the root of it, to the core, as to why is this a non-negotiable if you want to change it. You can't just say, I don't like women who do sex work, but I'm going to give this lady a chance and think that everything's going to be okay. It's going to bother you, all right? If you want to fix it such that you can accept a woman who does sex work, you have to go to the root and ask yourself, why is this something that bothers me? Work on that. And if you can change that about yourself, that's when you're free to date a woman who does sex work. Okay? So that's how that works. I hope that's clear. For women, an example is you don't want a man who follows thirst trap Instagram posts, or he has a wandering eye, which is completely understandable. Some people will argue, well, that's insecurity. I don't agree. I think it's a matter of respect. If that man is looking at every woman around you, you're not going to feel safe and you're not going to feel comfortable in that relationship. And you might say to yourself, let me give him a chance because I like him, or because he's handsome, or he has money, he takes care of me, or all these other reasons. Let me try to adjust. I'm telling you right now, from personal experience and from the experience of other people that I've seen, this is going to bother you. It's going to be a problem because he's going to continue to look at other women, and it's going to continue to upset you, hurt your feelings, and he's going to argue and say, well, you knew this about me, so I don't know why it's a problem today. Why are you arguing about it? When one day you feel particularly vulnerable and you say something and say, why are you checking that girl out? And he says, well, I should be free to do that. Okay? You don't want to have these kinds of stupid arguments throughout the entirety of your relationship, trust me. So discernment calls for the first time that you see him having a wandering eye, you cut it off there. Now, if you want to give this man a chance, exactly like how I told the men, you have to go to the root of why it bothers you. Why does it bother me when a man checks out other women? What is it about that behavior that upsets me so much? If you can reconcile that question and get to a point where you say, okay, you know what? It really isn't that big of a deal, and mean it, then you can date a man with a wandering eye. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm being clear. Until you get to the root of that non-negotiable, don't settle for somebody who's breaking a non-negotiable for you, because it's going to be a problem. It's going to bother you, and then it's going to ruin the relationship, and you're just going to waste everybody's time. Okay? Now, you have to establish what the non-negotiables are, right? You have to sit and with yourself with pen and paper and say, I will not accept this, and this in a partner. The next set of things are a little bit less non-negotiable. We can negotiate these things. Okay, a little bit messy. I can handle that. I mean, how messy? Is he a hoarder? Does he never clean up after himself? Does she leave her dirty underwear all over the place? What exactly are we talking about, right? Your tolerance level now. We're getting to the negotiables, things that I'm not crazy about this, but we can negotiate, okay? And then there are things that are just, it would be nice to have, in a partner. But if they don't have it, it's fine. Okay, and you have to decide what those are. So I'll give you an example. I had an ex who was obsessed with like the gym, and I wasn't. I'm not crazy about the gym. It became a problem for him after a while, despite the fact that after his divorce he didn't go to the gym. But once he got with me, he started going regularly, and once he got on a regular schedule, he was like, why aren't you on a regular schedule? And it's like, well, because I'm not a gym person, you know. But the point is, it became closer to a non-negotiable for him. The fact that I didn't want to necessarily go to the gym with him all the time or do activities. It just wasn't something that was important for me. So this you have to decide. Is this so important that I would leave the person if they don't do it? Or is it something where it would be nice to have a gym partner, but my partner doesn't like it, so it doesn't matter. These are small things to me, like, again, somebody who likes Star Wars, for example, I wouldn't want to watch it, but they are a huge fan, they want to go watch it. It would be nice for them to have their partner go with them, but if their partner isn't into it, how negotiable is it between us that I participate in your hobby, even though I don't like your hobby? And how devastated are you going to be if I don't participate, right? So those are little things that can be discussed. But the overall big things that you need the most discernment in, and you have to be brutal about it. That's the part that I think is the biggest issue that a lot of people have. They don't want to be brutal. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to cut off people. They want to give people the benefit of the doubt. They want to give people a chance. But the reality of it is, if you accept this person for who they are and you are ignoring these little red flags that you are seeing as red flags for you, you are going to waste everybody's time. You're going to waste their time. You're going to waste your time. You're going to waste everybody's emotional labor. It's going to be difficult. And the fun times are fun times, but the things that are difficult and are non-negotiable and require discernment, and the things that are red flags, those will build up and cause a lot of resentment. And in the end, you might leave each other on a bad note. Not everybody is friends with their ex. Not everybody can be friends with their ex. And so you might lose this person as even a friend if you're not brutal from the beginning. It's better to lose them when you're not so attached to them at the beginning versus spending months to years with this person, getting attached to them, and then seeing, you know what, I can't even be friends with this person. This was a bad idea. And then cutting them off there, crying about it, going back and forth with them because, again, that attachment is there. It's much better to be very brutal at the beginning. And I keep repeating that term because I think when you're in the spiritual community, we're not dealing with brutal people. We're dealing with very empathic, kind, gentle people, male and female. So your gender doesn't matter. You're probably a very sensitive, kind person if you are the type of person who watches tarot videos, right? That's just how spirituality is. One of the biggest lessons for people in the spiritual community is to learn how to pick up a sword, essentially, and cut out toxicity, not be tolerant of everyone. It's not a kumbaya love and light all the time. It's just, that's not feasible. That's not realistic. Okay. You can't do that for everybody. Some people are pure evil. Some people are just, you can't help them. Some people can't learn. Some people are just too mentally ill. They need help that you cannot give them. And it's not your job to have to go fix everybody and be gentle with everybody, right? You're not Jesus on the cross. You're a person, you have your own problems. Don't get yourself involved with people who don't deserve your time because they are clearly showing you that they're incompatible, they're emotionally unavailable, they don't want to reciprocate, they're selfish, they're mean, they're critical, they're judgmental. I know for a fact that many of you have already seen those red flags from the first couple of dates, the first couple of interactions with the people that you try to date, and you let it go, and then it ends up biting you in the butt. So this video, the point that I'm trying to make for the past 20 some odd minutes here is, don't be afraid to be brutal in your judgment and in your discernment of people when you're dating. At the beginning, it is much easier to cut somebody off, even if they don't take it well, and you think, gosh, I don't want to be mean. Be mean today so that you don't have to be mean later on in life after spending so many years with this person and finding out, damn, those red flags at the beginning, I knew it. I knew this wasn't the right person for me. Cut it off at the beginning. That's my advice to you. And again, as a tarot reader, I see this a lot. You guys, and when I say you guys, I'm including myself, okay? So when I say you guys, I'm in that group. You guys want to be sweet, you want to be kind, you want to be gentle, you want to be forgiving and loving and all these things. You're putting yourself at a detriment, okay? I suffered for about a year crying just about every day because I picked the wrong person. I allowed the wrong person to come into my life, and it ended up just hurting me in the end. It hurt my feelings. It was hard to detach from him, and it was just unnecessary. If I had had more discernment at the beginning, I would have just had a very different approach, you know. I would have had a much colder approach. And not for the sake of being cold or for the sake of being mean, but for the sake of not wasting his time or my time. I would have had a very different dynamic if I had the wisdom then that I have now, right? But that's in retrospect. And so I'm just saying that one of the things to hone in on is the skill of discernment. And discernment requires judgment. And judgment requires you to be a little bit strong, a little bit unforgiving. And if you need permission, let me give you permission. I'm going to give you the permission that you need to be brutal, to be unforgiving, to be judgmental, because this is your time and your emotions that are at stake. Especially if you are a sensitive person, it's going to bother you and hurt you more than maybe this other person, okay? So we want to protect you because you are more sensitive. You have to be discerning from the beginning. At any red flag, you cut them off. At any non-negotiable, you cut them off. If they seem like the type of person who's not compatible with the things that you want in a partner, do not waste your time. Don't do it. Because in the end, these things catch up, right? You might say, oh, well, I want to give him a chance. Again, even that takes discernment. When does a person deserve that chance? Highly specific circumstances, okay? Don't just give everybody a chance because you want to be Jesus of Nazareth, okay? Okay, you don't need to sacrifice yourself and your well-being and your emotions because you want to be a good person and not judge other people. Okay, I'm giving you permission. Judge as much as you need to, because if you want to get into a relationship with somebody, they should be as compatible with you as possible to have the least amount of friction in the relationship. Okay, so hopefully that helped you in some capacity, or at least gave you something to think about. Or if you would like to argue with me, feel free. I hear people argue with me all the time. I have very unhinged views, and I'm used to people telling me no. So if you want to disagree, I would love to hear what you think about it. If you want to agree, I would love to hear that as well. Do you have a story where you could say, yeah, I didn't use my discernment and it ended up being a problem? Yeah, that's it. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you think in the comments, okay? Hope you guys have a great day. Good luck out there, and I'll see you in the next one.